NYSE parent company Intercontinental Exchange has kicked off a new series called Markets Explained. For the first episode, ICE's Judy Shaw and Jeff Barbudo dove into the U.S. oil market and explored how geography, logistics, and market relevance shape global energy pricing. Check it out.
Welcome to Texas, the land of oil.
Buckle up and keep your hands and your feet inside the ride at all times. And that ride is the oil market roller coaster.
Oil has played a major role in the shaping of the region and the economy. For 50 years, West Texas Intermediate, better known as WTI, has tracked that influence, a key price marker for U.S. oil.
I appreciate your getting back to me on that price change last evening. I was able to meet my competition just like that.
If you're new to crude benchmarks, you've probably wondered, what's the difference between WTI Cushing and WTI Midland?
We've been watching WTI crude now.
We are seeing a big move in crude this morning.
Energy is the runaway winner today.
Midland and Cushing are two completely different quality crude oils in the United States. They differ in geography, logistics, and market relevance. Let's head to Cushing, Oklahoma, once known as the pipeline crossroads of the world. Cushing is where oil futures go to retire. This is the official delivery point for NYMEX WTI crude.
WTI was a benchmark created by the New York Mercantile Exchange. It was traded in the pits, and it was physically delivered to Cushing, Oklahoma. And it was delivered there primarily because of its connectivity to refineries in the Midwest and also pipelines to the Gulf Coast and other locations around the country. I think it was groundbreaking at the time. It was 1983 when it went live. It was really the first time that an exchange created a futures market to bring transparency to crude pricing. At the time, Cushing was really the crossroads for all of the transportation for crude around the U.S. It's always been the case that crude oil production and quality profiles change over time.
Where is all this oil coming from that we're storing here in the U.S.?
The United States is effectively becoming the world's sponge for oil.
The U.S. was the biggest importer of crude. It was the biggest economy in the world, and it relied on the Middle East and other imports of crude. Fast forward to 2010 or so, and you had Canadian crude production ramping up. You had North Dakota crude ramping up. West Texas Intermediate was ramping up because of the shale production. So all of these new crude streams were coming online at the same time, and all of them were flowing into Cushing.
Ty just mentioned those rising stockpiles of crude, and all that oil has to be stored somewhere, of course. There's so much of it that storage space may soon run out.
They couldn't store it all. There's 80 million barrels of storage. There still wasn't enough to handle all of that flow.
There's more crude coming into Cushing than going out.
In 2015, the U.S. lifted the export ban.
Shouldn't we be able to sell our goods to whomever we like?
Congressional leaders have agreed to lift the nation's 40-year-old ban on oil exports.
The industry got together and they actually worked to reverse the Seaway pipeline that was set up to take crude from the Gulf Coast and deliver it into Cushing for distribution, to reverse those pipelines so that all of that inflow of crude from North America could make it to the Gulf Coast for exports.
Let's head south to Midland, Texas.
A lot going on in the oil patch right now.
In the heart of the Permian Basin, members of Congress are getting a firsthand look at what fuels America.
I'm on the Gulf Coast, where crude oil is received, stored, and where tankers arrive to transport U.S. oil to markets around the world.
We are pretty much sitting right on top of 50 billion barrels of recoverable oil, making this one of the largest oil fields in the entire world.
If Cushing is where the U.S. oil industry started, Midland represents its future.
Midland WTI is a very light, sweet crude that's very popular on the international markets because of its production of gasoline and diesel.
The Permian produces over 5 million barrels a day, more than some OPEC countries. The Permian is not just an oil powerhouse, it's a global-scale producer, making it a strategic pillar of U.S. energy independence and a force in shaping global oil markets.
Let's start with Intercontinental Exchange, this new Houston crude oil futures contract. Why the need?
Everyone realized that the archaic market that we had landlocked at Cushing, Oklahoma, really wasn't sufficient for the future. Most of the oil that's produced in the U.S. goes directly to the Gulf Coast. It never sees Cushing, Oklahoma. So it was imperative that a new market be focused upon and created. This is a historic day for the industry.
About 2/3 of the crude that's pipelined out of the Permian Basin lands in Houston. We created the ICE Midland WTI contract. The contract code is HOU. HOU is the only physically deliverable contract on the Gulf Coast. And we worked with Enterprise Product Partners, which is a huge midstream company with about 17 docks in the Houston area, to establish a spec for Midland WTI. That's a big point because the crude at Cushing is known as DSW, although it's still named in the market as WTI. It's actually got an entirely different quality profile, and refiners globally look to HOU as the actual convergence place of financial markets and physical pricing for Midland WTI. Over the years, that has become even a bigger deal because the Brent benchmark was created to help price crude production in the North Sea. But over time, North Sea production significantly declined and new crude streams needed to be added to the basket. This is a natural solution to ensure that there's enough physical oil underpinning the futures market. So traders can now manage their exact arbitrage exposure between the US and Europe by trading the futures spread between ICE Midland WTI and ICE Brent.
And that's the difference between WTI Cushing and WTI Midland. Both are critical, but in today's global energy market, knowing the difference isn't just technical, it's strategic. Thanks for watching.